Some friendships feel like destiny, not planned, not expected, but when they happen, they become everything. This was the kind of friendship Zara had with Nargisa. They met at university. First day, first class. Zara walked in quietly, looking for a seat. The room was already full. Then she heard a voice. "You can sit here." It was Nargisa, smiling, warm. That moment changed everything. From that day on, they were inseparable. They studied together, ate together, laughed together, shared secrets, dreams, fears. If one was missing, the other didn't feel complete. "Promise me something," Nargisa once said. Zara looked at her. "What?" "No matter what happens in life," Nargisa smiled, "we stay like this." Zara laughed softly. "That's not even a question." They held hands. "Forever," Zara said. "Forever," Nargisa repeated. And in that moment, they believed it. Years passed. Life moved forward, but their friendship didn't change. Until one day, everything did. Nargisa got married. His name was Jasser, a successful man, confident, charming. At the wedding, Zara stood beside her best friend, smiling, happy, but deep inside, something felt different. Not jealousy, something she couldn't explain. Nargisa hugged her tightly. "You're not losing me," she whispered. Zara smiled. "I know." But sometimes life changes quietly before we even realize it. After the wedding, things slowly shifted. Nargisa became busy. A new life, a new home, a new routine. Zara understood, or at least she tried to. At first, she visited often. Nargisa welcomed her warmly. "Come any time," she would say. And Zara did, too often, because she missed her, missed what they had. One evening, Zara came over again. Jasser opened the door. Their eyes met. For a moment, something unfamiliar passed between them. Short, but real. "Come in," he said calmly. Zara stepped inside. She didn't understand it yet, but that moment was the beginning of everything. The beginning of a story that would destroy trust, break hearts, and change their lives forever. At first, it meant nothing. Just a glance, just a moment. Something easy to ignore. But some moments are not as small as they seem. After that evening, Zara found herself thinking about it. That look, the way Jasser had opened the door, the way his eyes stayed on her, just a second longer than necessary. She shook her head. "This is nothing," she told herself. And maybe it should have stayed that way. Days passed. Zara continued visiting. At first, only when Nargisa invited her. Then, even without invitation. The house felt familiar, too familiar. One afternoon, Nargisa wasn't home. Zara didn't know that. She knocked on the door. Jasser opened it again. "You're alone?" she asked. He nodded. She went out. Silence. Zara hesitated. "I'll come back later," she said. But before she could turn, "You can come in," Jasser said. His voice calm, too calm. Zara paused. She knew this was not right. She felt it, that quiet warning inside her. But instead of listening, she stepped in. That was the first line, and she crossed that. Inside, everything felt different. The same house, but not the same atmosphere. Jasser closed the door slowly. Zara stood awkwardly. "I shouldn't stay long." "You don't have to leave," he replied. Their voices were quiet, careful, as if both of them understood something was happening, but neither of them said it. Minutes passed. Conversation started. Simple things, university, life, memories. Then something changed. The distance between them became smaller, not physically, but emotionally. Jasser looked at her. "You're always here," he said. Zara smiled slightly. "She's my best friend." "But you come even when she's not?" he replied. Zara froze. She didn't know how to, or maybe she didn't want to admit the truth. Silence filled the room, heavy, different. Then Jasser quietly said, "You're not just here for her anymore, are you?" Those words hit directly. Zara's heart started racing. This is wrong, she thought, but she didn't leave. That was the second line, and she crossed that too. "I don't know," she whispered. Josser stepped closer. Not too close, but enough. Enough to make everything real. In that moment, there were no excuses left, no misunderstandings, no confusion, only choice, and they chose to stay. That day, nothing happened. No touch, no confession, but something much more dangerous did. A boundary was broken, and once a line is crossed, it becomes easier to cross it again. After that day, everything changed. Not on the outside, but inside, everything was different. Zara tried to act normal. She still called Nargisa, still laughed, still behaved like nothing had happened. But her mind kept returning to that moment, that silence, that question. "You're not just here for her anymore, are you?" She couldn't forget it, because deep inside, she knew the answer. Days passed. Then one message came, from Jasor. Simple. "When are you coming?" Zara stared at the screen. Her heart started beating faster. She didn't reply immediately. She knew she shouldn't. She told herself, "Don't answer." But her fingers moved anyway. "I don't know." That was enough. The next day, she went. But this time, she knew Nargisa wouldn't be home. And still, she went. That was no longer coincidence. That was a decision. Jasor opened the door. No surprise, no questions, only understanding. "You came," he said. Zara looked at him. I shouldn't have, but she was already inside. The door closed again, and with it, another line disappeared. This time, they didn't pretend. No small talk, no distance, only tension, real, dangerous. "You know this is wrong," Zara said quietly. Jasor looked at her. "Then why are you here?" She had no answer, because sometimes people don't need reasons. They just follow what they feel, and what she felt was pulling her deeper. That day, they got closer, not just in words, but in presence, in silence, in the way they looked at each other, the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. After that, it didn't stop. It became a pattern. Messages, meetings, excuses, lies. Zara started timing her visits, only when Nargisa was away, only when no one would see. At night, she would think, "This has to stop." But the next day, she would go again, because the truth was simple. She was no longer just visiting. She was involved, deeply, and the deeper she went, the harder it became to turn back. One evening, Nargisa called her. "Why don't you come over anymore?" she asked. Zara froze. Her heart tightened painfully. "I'll always be here," she replied. Another lie, and this one hurt the most, because once it had been true. That night, Zara sat alone, thinking. For the first time in a long while, guilt returned, stronger, sharper. "This is wrong," she whispered. But then, her phone lit up. A message from Jasor. "I miss you." She stared at it. For a moment, she hesitated, just like before. But this time, the hesitation didn't last. "I'm coming tomorrow," she replied. And just like that, the guilt disappeared again. Because sometimes, people don't fall into mistakes. They walk into them, again and again, until they no longer see them as mistakes at all. At first, it felt like a mistake, something temporary, something that would end soon. But it didn't. Because the more they met, the easier it became. The guilt slowly faded, the fear became quieter, and the secret turned into a habit. Zara no longer hesitated. She didn't overthink. She didn't question herself like before. Instead, she planned, carefully, precisely. She knew exactly when Nargisa would leave the house. She knew Jasora's schedule. She knew when it was safe and when it wasn't. This was no longer accidental. This was intentional, and that made it worse. But neither of them stopped, because both of them were already too deep. One afternoon, they sat in silence, closer than before, too comfortable, too familiar. "This can't continue forever," Zara said quietly. Jasora looked at her. "Do you want it to stop?" Zara didn't answer, because her silence was already an answer. Jasora leaned back slightly. "Then why say that?" She sighed. "Because I know how this ends." "And how does it end?" he asked. Zara looked down. "Badly." Silence. But neither of them moved. Neither of them created distance. Because even knowing the ending, they still chose to continue. Days turned into weeks, and something else began to change. Zara stopped seeing Nargisa the same way, not because she didn't care, but because she couldn't face her. Every smile felt heavy. Every conversation felt fake. Every "I trust you" felt like a knife. One evening, Nargisa hugged her tightly. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she said. Zara froze. Her heart tightened painfully. "I'll always be here," she replied. Another lie, and this one hurt the most, because once it had been true. That night, Zara sat alone, thinking. For the first time in a long while, guilt returned, stronger, sharper. "This is wrong," she whispered. But then, her phone lit up. A message from Jasor. "I miss you." She stared at it. For a moment, she hesitated, just like before. But this time, the hesitation didn't last. "I'm coming tomorrow," she replied. And just like that, the guilt disappeared again. Because sometimes, people don't fall into mistakes. They walk into them, again and again, until they no longer see them as mistakes at all. At first, it was just a feeling. Nothing clear, nothing visible, just something not right. Nargisa couldn't explain it, but she felt it. That quiet discomfort in her chest, that small voice in her mind saying, something is wrong. She tried to ignore it. She told herself, "You're overthinking." But the feeling didn't go away. It stayed, growing slowly. She noticed small things, tiny changes, things others wouldn't even see, but she did. Zara visited less, but when she came, something felt different. Her smiles felt forced. Her eyes avoided contact. "Are you okay?" Nargisa asked one day. Zara nodded quickly. "Of course." Too quickly. That was the first sign. Then there was Jasur. He had changed too, not in obvious ways, but in small details. He spent more time on his phone. He became quieter, more distant. Sometimes he seemed distracted, lost in thought. "Is everything okay?" Nargisa asked him. He smiled. "Work is just stressful." Another simple answer, too simple. And slowly, the pieces began to connect. One evening, Nargisa came home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, too quiet. She walked inside slowly. Something felt off. She didn't know why, but her heart started beating faster. She looked around. Everything seemed normal, but the feeling didn't leave. She stepped toward the bedroom, then stopped. Voices, soft, almost whispers. Her heart dropped. She moved closer, but just as she reached the door, silence. Complete silence. Too sudden, too perfect. She stood there, frozen, listening. Nothing. After a few seconds, the door opened. Jasur stood there, alone. "You're home early," he said, calmly, too calmly. Nargiza looked past him. The room, empty. Or at least, it looked empty. "Yeah," she said slowly. Her eyes scanned everything. Something was wrong. She knew it, but she couldn't prove it. Not yet. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed everything. The looks, the behavior, the silence. "Am I imagining this?" she whispered. But deep inside, she already knew. This was not imagination. This was the beginning of something real, something dangerous. And sometimes the scariest part is not knowing the truth, but feeling it before you can see it. The feeling didn't leave. It stayed with her, quiet, constant, uncomfortable. Nargiza tried to live normally. She smiled, she talked, she acted like everything was fine, but inside, her mind was searching, watching, waiting for something real. And then it happened. One afternoon, she forgot something at home. Her charger, a small thing, something simple. She wasn't supposed to come back, not at that time, but she did. And sometimes, truth appears when you least expect it. She opened the door quietly. The house was not empty. She felt it immediately, that same feeling, but stronger. Her heart started racing, slow steps, careful, silent. She walked inside. Then, a sound. From the bedroom. Not voices this time, movement, soft, hidden, but there. Nargiza stopped. Her breath became shallow. Her hands trembled. She didn't want to believe it, but her body already knew. She stepped closer. The door was slightly open, just enough to see everything. Zara and Jasor, together, too close, too real. There was no misunderstanding, no explanation, no doubt. The truth was right in front of her, and in that moment, something inside her broke, completely. But she didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't make a sound. She stepped back slowly, her heart shattered in silence, because sometimes pain is so deep it doesn't come out. It stays inside, burning, destroying. She walked out, quietly, closed the door, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just seen her entire world collapse. Outside, she stopped. Her legs felt weak, her breath uneven, her tears filled her eyes. But still, she didn't cry. Not yet. Because what hurt the most was not just the betrayal, it was who it came from. Her husband and her best friend, the two people she trusted the most at the same time. That night, she sat alone, in darkness, thinking, replaying everything, understanding everything. Every look, every lie, every moment. It all made sense now. And slowly, her pain changed into something else. Something colder, something sharper. Not just heartbreak, but a decision. Because some people break down, and some people become something else entirely. And Nargiza was no longer the same. That night, Nargiza didn't cry. Not once. No tears, no screams, no confrontation. Because her pain had already turned into something else, something colder, something controlled. She sat in silence, thinking, not about what she lost, but about what she would do next. Because some betrayals don't end with sadness, they end with decisions. And Nargiza made hers. The next morning, everything looked normal. She woke up early, prepared breakfast, smiled. Jasor sat at the table. "Good morning," he said. Nargiza smiled back. "Good morning." As if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't seen everything. And that was the most dangerous part. Because when someone hides their pain, you never know what they're planning. Days passed. Nargiza watched. Carefully. Quietly. She noticed everything now. Every message, every glance, every excuse. Nothing escaped her anymore. But she said nothing. Because silence was part of her plan. One evening, she opened Jasor's laptop. He had left it unlocked. Careless. Confident. She scrolled through his files, bank accounts, documents, savings, everything. And for the first time, she saw the full picture. How much money he had, where it was stored, what was under his name, what could be moved, what could be taken. Her eyes didn't show emotion, only calculation. Trust, she whispered, is the easiest thing to use against someone. The next step came quietly. She started asking questions, casually. How does this account work? What happens if we transfer this? Shouldn't we manage things differently? Jasor didn't suspect anything. Why would he? He trusted her, completely. And that trust became her greatest weapon. Day by day, she began moving things. Small changes, unnoticed. Accounts shifted, documents updated, assets transferred, all under her name, carefully, legally, perfectly. No mistakes, no rush, just patience. Because real revenge is not loud, it is quiet, precise, and irreversible. Meanwhile, Zara and Jasur continued, blind, careless, unaware, thinking they were hiding everything. But they weren't, because the one person they betrayed was now watching everything and planning every step. And when the time came, they wouldn't just lose trust, they would lose everything. Revenge is not about anger, it's about patience, and Nargiza had become very patient. By now, almost everything was under her control. The accounts, the savings, the documents, all slowly transferred into her name. Jasor didn't notice. Zara didn't question. Because when people feel safe, they stop paying attention. And that was exactly what Nargiza needed. But money alone was not enough. She didn't just want to leave. She wanted them to feel what she felt. Loss, shock, betrayal. So she planned one final step. The trap. One evening, she sat with Jasor. Calm, relaxed. "I've been thinking," she said. Jasor looked at her. "About what?" "Our future." He smiled slightly. "That's good." Nargiza nodded. "We should expand." "Expand?" he asked. "Business," she replied. "Invest more. Grow faster." Jasor leaned forward. "That requires money." Nargiza looked at him calmly. "We can take a loan." Silence. Jasor hesitated. "It's risky." Nargiza smiled softly. "Only if we don't believe in ourselves." Her voice was confident, carefully convincing. "You trust me, don't you?" That question is everything. Because trust is the easiest way to control someone. Jasor nodded. "Of course I do." And just like that, he agreed. The next days moved quickly. Papers signed, documents prepared. But not in Jasor's name, in Zara's name, without her fully understanding, without her questioning, because she trusted Jasor, just like Jasor trusted Nargiza, and Nargiza used both of them perfectly. The loan was approved, a large amount, more than enough, and the moment it entered the account, Nargiza moved fast, precise, every cent transferred, every trace hidden, everything gone. That night, she packed her things. No hesitation, no regret. She stood in the doorway one last time, looking at the house, the life she once loved, then whispered, You broke me. Now you will understand." And she left, without a word, without a trace. And by the time they realized what happened, it would already be too late. The morning felt normal. Too normal. Jasur woke up early. The house was quiet. He didn't think much of it. Nargiza must have gone out, he thought. He got ready, checked his phone. No messages. Strange, but still, nothing alarming. Then Zara arrived, like always, or at least, like before. She smiled slightly. "Is she home?" she asked. Jasur shook his head. "She's probably out." Zara stepped inside. Something felt off, but she ignored it, because she had learned to ignore that feeling. They sat down, talking casually, but the house felt different. Too quiet, too empty. Hours passed. No call, no message. Jasur frowned. This isn't like her. He picked up his phone, called. No answer. Again, nothing. Now, something felt wrong. Real. Heavy. Zara looked at him. Maybe she's busy, but her voice was uncertain. Jasur stood up. "I'll check something." He walked to his laptop, opened it, logged into his accounts, and then everything stopped. Balance? 0. He blinked, refreshed. Again, 0. His heart dropped. No, this is not possible. He opened another account. Empty. Another. Nothing. His hand started shaking. This can't be. Zara stood up slowly. What happened? Jasur turned to her, his face pale. "Everything is gone." Silence. "What do you mean, gone?" Zara whispered. "All the money, all the accounts, everything." Zara's breath caught. "No, that's not possible." But it was. Jasur checked the transaction history. Transfers. Multiple. All to one name. Nargiza. The room froze. Time stopped. Zara stared at the screen. Her mind couldn't process it. She took everything? Jasur didn't answer, because the truth was already clear. And then something worse appeared. A notification. Loan confirmation. Amount? Huge. Borrower name? Zara. She stepped back. "No." Her voice broke. "No, I didn't." Her hands trembled. "I didn't take any loan." Jasur looked at her, confused, shocked. "What are you talking about?" Zara shook her head. "I didn't sign anything." But the documents said otherwise. Her name, her signature, everything official, everything legal, everything real. And in that moment, the truth hit both of them. They had been played, completely. Not just betrayed, destroyed. Zara collapsed onto the chair, her world spinning. This can't be happening. But it was. And Nargiza was gone. With everything. Leaving behind nothing but debt and silence. Because sometimes, revenge doesn't just hurt. It takes everything. At first, they didn't understand the full weight of it. Shock blinds the mind. It takes time for reality to settle in. And when it did, it hit hard. Very hard. The phone started ringing. Once, twice, then non-stop. Unknown numbers, banks, loan agencies. "Your payment is overdue. You must pay immediately. Legal action will be taken." Each call felt heavier than the last. Zara sat in silence, her hands shaking. "I didn't do this," she whispered, but the world didn't care. Because on paper, she did. Her name was on everything, every document, every contract, every signature. She tried to explain, "This is a mistake," but no one listened. Because legally, there was no mistake. There was only responsibility, and it was hers. Jasur tried to fix it. He went to the bank, argued, explained, demanded answers, but the response was cold. "Everything is valid. All documents are signed. The loan is your responsibility. There was no way out, no loophole, no mercy. When he returned home, he looked different, not angry, broken. They won't help, he said quietly. Zara's eyes filled with tears. What are we going to do? Jasur didn't answer, because he didn't know. Days turned into pressure. Pressure turned into panic. Panic turned into reality. They started selling things. First small items, then bigger ones. Furniture, electronics, valuables. Anything that could bring money. But it wasn't enough. Not even close. Because the debt was too large, too heavy. Zara stopped sleeping. Every night she stared at the ceiling, her mind filled with one thought. This is my fault. Even though it wasn't. Because sometimes guilt doesn't follow truth. It follows consequences. Jasur became silent, distant. The man who once seemed confident now looked lost. Because everything he built was gone, and the person he trusted most had destroyed it. But the worst part was not the money, not the debt, not even the loss. It was the realization. They had done this to themselves, through lies, through betrayal, through choices, and now they had to live with it. Because sometimes the consequences of our actions don't come immediately, but when they do, they take everything. At first, they stayed silent, too tired to argue, too broken to speak. But silence doesn't last forever, because pain needs somewhere to go, and when it can't escape, it turns into blame. One evening, everything finally broke. Zahra sat in the corner, her eyes red, her voice weak. "I didn't do this," she whispered again. Jasur stood nearby, still. Then suddenly, that's not the point anymore. His voice was calm, but sharp. Zahra leapt up. "What do you mean?" Jasur stepped closer. "The point is, we're here now." His eyes were cold. "And we're here because of you." The words hit hard. Zahra's breath stopped. "Because of me?" she repeated. "Yes," he said. "If you didn't come into this house, if you didn't—" He stopped, but it was too late. The damage was done. Zahra stood up, her voice shaking. "You think this is only my fault?" Silence. Jasur didn't answer, because deep inside, he knew it wasn't. But pain doesn't look for fairness. It looks for someone to blame. "You were the one who opened the door," Zahra said. "You were the one who let me in." Her eyes filled with tears. "You betrayed her too." Jasur clenched his jaw. "And you didn't too?" he replied. The room grew heavy. Two people, both guilty, both broken, both trying to escape the truth. "We trusted her," Zahra whispered, "and she destroyed us." Jasur laughed bitterly. "No, we destroyed ourselves first." That sentence changed everything, because it was true, painfully true. Silence filled the room again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was full of regret, full of realization. Zahra sat down slowly, her hands covering her face. "We lost everything," she whispered. Jasur didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say. Not about money, not about trust, not about the past, because all of it was gone. That night, they didn't argue anymore. They didn't blame each other. They didn't even speak, because sometimes there is a moment when words are no longer needed, when the truth becomes so clear that all that remains is regret and the quiet understanding that some mistakes cannot be undone. The calls didn't stop. If anything, they became worse. Morning, afternoon, night. It didn't matter. The phone kept ringing. Final warning. Legal notice. Immediate payment. required. Each message more serious than the last. Zara stopped answering. She couldn't. Her hands would shake before she even picked up the phone. So she let it ring, again and again, until silence returned. But the silence was worse, because it wasn't peace, it was waiting. One morning, there was a knock on the door. Not soft, not polite, firm, heavy. Zara froze. Jasor looked at her. Neither of them moved. The knock came again, louder this time. "Open the door." A man's voice, serious, official. Jasor walked slowly, opened the door. Two men stood outside, formal, cold expressions. "We're here regarding the loan," one of them said. Zara's heart dropped. Jasor stepped aside. They entered, without invitation, without hesitation. "Payment has not been made," the man continued. "This is the final stage before legal action." Zara stood still. "I didn't take that loan." Her voice was weak, almost breaking. The man looked at her, then at the documents. "Your name is here." No emotion, no sympathy, only facts. Zara's eyes filled with tears. This is not fair, but fairness had nothing to do with it. "Either you pay," the man said, "or we proceed legally." Silence, heavy, unavoidable. Jasor clenched his jaw. "How much time do we have?" "Very little." That was the answer. Short, final. When they left, the house felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in. Zara sat down slowly. Her body felt weak. "They're going to take everything," she whispered. Jasor didn't deny it, because it was true. There was nothing left to protect, nothing left to save, only consequences, and they had finally arrived. That night, Zara cried, for the first time since everything happened. Not quietly, not silently, but completely, because now there was no more denial, no more hope, only reality. And reality was unforgiving. Jasor stood in the doorway, watching, listening, but not moving, because he knew there was nothing he could do, nothing anyone could do, because sometimes the price of betrayal is not paid immediately, but when it is, it comes all at once. Days passed, but nothing improved. If anything, everything became worse. The house felt different, not like a home anymore, just a place filled with tension, silence, heavy silence, the kind that makes it hard to breathe. Zara stopped going out. She avoided people, avoided questions, avoided eyes, because she felt it, judgment, even when no one said anything. Inside her mind, the voices were loud enough. "This is your fault. You did this. You destroyed everything." She tried to silence them, but they didn't stop. Jasor changed too. He no longer spoke much. He left early, came back late. Sometimes he didn't come back at all. Not because he didn't have a place, but because he couldn't face it, couldn't face the reality, couldn't face her. One evening, Zara sat alone. The lights were off, the room dark, just like her thoughts. She looked around. Everything felt empty, because everything was gone. The life she once knew, the friendship she once had, the trust she once believed in, all of it destroyed. And the worst part was that she understood why. Not just what happened, but how it happened, step by step, choice by choice. She whispered softly, "I did this." Tears rolled down her face, not out of confusion, but out of understanding. Because sometimes real pain begins when you finally see the truth, not about others, but about yourself. The next day, Another letter arrived. Final notice. Short, cold, clear. If payment is not made, legal seizure will begin. Zara held the paper, her hands trembling. There was nothing left to fight, nothing left to protect, only acceptance. Later that night, Jasur returned. He looked at her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, because what was there to say? Then finally, Zara whispered, "Do you hate me?" Jasur didn't answer immediately. He looked away, then quietly said, "I don't know." Silence. "But I hate what we became." Those words cut deeper than anything else, because they were true, completely true. Two people who once had everything, now left with nothing. Not money, not trust, not even themselves. And sometimes, losing everything is the only way to understand what truly mattered. There comes a moment when running is no longer possible. No excuses, no lies, no hiding, only truth. And for Zara, that moment had arrived. She stood in the empty room, looking around. The walls felt unfamiliar, not because they changed, but because she did. Everything she once believed was gone. Friendship, trust, loyalty, all broken. And now she understood something she hadn't before. This didn't start with Nargiza. It didn't start with the money. It didn't even start with the betrayal. It started with a choice. A single moment when she knew something was wrong, and still, she stayed. That was the beginning, and everything after that was just consequences. Tears rolled down her face, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Because this time, it wasn't about pain, it was about understanding. "I could have stopped," she whispered, "at the beginning." Silence. Heavy. Real. Elsewhere, Jasur sat alone, in his car, not going anywhere, not doing anything, just sitting, thinking, replaying everything. The first moment, the first look, the first decision. He closed his eyes. "I knew too," he said quietly. "I knew it was wrong." But he didn't stop. Because sometimes people don't fall into mistakes. They choose them. And now he was living with that choice. The next day, everything became official. The process had begun. Their property, their belongings, everything would be taken, legally, completely. Zara stood there, watching, not fighting, not arguing, because there was nothing left to defend, only truth. And truth was undeniable. Later, she sat outside, alone, for the first time in complete silence. No phone, no voices, no noise, just her and her thoughts. And in that silence, she realized something important. This was not just punishment. This was a lesson, a harsh one, a painful one, but a necessary one. Because some lessons can only be learned after everything is lost. In the end, everything was taken. The house, the belongings, the comfort they once had, all gone. Not suddenly, but completely. Zara stood outside, watching strangers walk through what used to be her life, picking things up, taking them away, as if nothing there ever belonged to her. And maybe it didn't anymore. Jasur stood nearby, silent. No anger left, no pride, just emptiness. Two people, once surrounded by everything, now standing with nothing. Days later, they moved. A small place, far from where they used to live, far from memories, far from everything they once were. Life became simple. Too simple. No luxury, no comfort, just survival. Zara started working, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Every day she woke up early, worked long hours, came home tired, not just physically, but emotionally, because every moment reminded her of what she lost and why. Jasor changed too. He became quieter, more distant, but not angry anymore, because anger had no place left, only reality. One evening, they sat together, in silence. No tension, no arguments, just two people who had finally understood everything. Zara spoke first. "We can't change the past." Her voice was calm. "But we can decide who we become now." Jasor looked at her. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then slowly, he nodded. Because for the first time, they weren't blaming each other. They were accepting the truth, accepting the consequences, accepting themselves. And sometimes that is where healing begins. Not when everything is fixed, but when everything is understood. Zara looked ahead, her eyes no longer full of fear, no longer full of confusion, but something else, clarity, because she had learned the hard way that betrayal doesn't only destroy others, it destroys you too. And trust, once broken, can take everything with it. But even then, life doesn't end. It continues with new choices, new paths, and new chances, not to erase the past, but to become better than it. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real ending. Not punishment, but understanding.